Dave Torromeo here with Latin Business Today, the Sport Business Institute, and I'm here today with really a legend in the sports business world, a guy who we're going to hear a great story from him and how he started. His name is Brandon Steiner, and most of you have heard of Steiner Sports and what he's done with his career. Now, obviously, more than that, we'll get into that in a second, and he's been just so you know, those of you know, I worked the Manhattanville college program, and he has been very generous over the years with his time. He's been to campus multiple times. He has hired a lot of our students, had interns with him at his facility. So I want to thank him for that, and I also want to introduce him now, Mr. Brandon Steiner. Brandon, hello.
Hello. First of all, thanks for having me. I appreciate it. I'm a legend in my own mind anyway, but I know a lot of people probably find this hard to believe, but I'm not with Steiner anymore. Steiner has been with Steiner for 3 years, and that was a great company I built. Love that company, but that's it's like when you ask Sting about the police. It's Sting. I mean, but the police. Well, that was yesterday. The Steiner was yesterday. Collectible Exchange is my new platform. It's a great platform. Collectible Exchange is really like a form of eBay, so you can buy, sell. And there are literally hundreds of thousands of items on the site of everything you can imagine. And it's really, I hope, will take eBay's place one day soon. Good. So if you're looking for a really cool item, you would find that on Collectible Exchange. Plus, we do some really cool direct-to-consumer from the athletes. The athletes have their own little sites on our site, so you can buy directly from the athlete. But anyway, I just wanted to get that cleared up because everybody thinks with Steiner, but Collectible Exchange is my game. And very grateful for the run I had at Steiner and the support I got, and a lot of people that have come over to Collectible Exchange. I can't thank them enough, and hopefully I'll see more and more people there in the future.
Yes, well, I was going to get into that, but I figured we'd start, obviously, and when you have a name like Steiner and a Steiner Sports, it'd be like me giving a Torromeo Sports. It's still, it's like you built that, and obviously
it's ingrained.
You're kind of a serial entrepreneur. You've done a lot of things. You're the author of 3 books, and we'll get into that in a second. I'd like to hear more about that. But let's go back, as they say, to the beginning, your roots. I mean, obviously, growing up in New York and the kind of, how you were raised and that type of thing.
Well, I mean, it's been an epic run, and it has been a run because it started when I was about 10. And, I used to kind of feel bad about the fact that I started working at such an early age, and it turned out to be, really out of necessity, but it's been such an advantage. I've always been a serial entrepreneur as a kid, always scheming, dreaming. I was definitely an odd kid. Now entrepreneurism is a little more popular. One of my goals is, 750,000 businesses prior to the virus, went out of business, and only 600,000 new ones opened up. And, I really have a spirit to not only my own entrepreneur spirit, but to promote entrepreneurism because we need it in this country. We can't let small business, when you have 150,000 more small businesses closing than opening. I mean, 600,000 small businesses open, 750 close. So I have a real passion about teaching entrepreneurship and promoting it because it's such an important aspect of our country and part of the dream. So it's been that way for me, from delivering fruit and vegetables, paper route, conditions on Coney Island, just working all kinds of angles you can't even imagine. And but it's all led to different way of thinking. And I've been really loving, bringing people closer to the game. That's been my kind of goal in entering the sports business. I know how people are so fanatic and how much they love their sports. And if I can get people closer to the game, closer to the players that they cherish and love, or get them more involved with the teams that they're rooting for. That's been my MO, and that I've just really enjoyed doing it, and to see the wow on people's faces throughout these years. And I continue to do it, and more cool stuff coming up because I'm still at 63 scheming and dreaming about that 10, 12-year-old kid that, the stuff that he would want, even if that 12-year-old's in a 50-year-old man's body.
Yeah. Well, we all have that in us, don't we? When you grow up a sports fan, you that little piece of you, and it should never die when you love sports or you love your teams, and so But you said something interesting, and I'd like to touch on a little bit. about the serial entrepreneurship and being an entrepreneur. Now, you're a proud graduate of Syracuse University. Obviously, you're still involved up there. You're involved with the sport management program as well, I believe, up there. And I don't think, and tell me if I'm wrong, that you learned any of this entrepreneurship stuff when you were in college. I mean, I say that for a reason, because I think that's something, I don't know if it can be taught or if it's innate.
I hate that question.
Okay.
It's so annoying when people say things like, can you teach entrepreneurism? So I'm going to have to go on a rant. Well, let me roll back. First of all, yes, I learned a ton at Syracuse. To be a great entrepreneur, which I still aspire to be, you still have to get the basic. You still have to have the fundamental, there's a lot of fundamental blocking and tackling, even though you're a crazy thinker, a lot of basic business principles, accounting, finance, marketing, simple stuff still is extremely important. I think entrepreneurs overlook that. To be a great entrepreneur, you still are dealing with finance, borrowing money, raising money, accounting for the money. All that stuff is very, very important. And I got to play out a lot of that stuff in school without any downside. I did a lot of entrepreneur things in college on a slightly higher level than I was doing in middle school and high school. And, I had nothing to lose. And I built a lot of confidence at the same time, learning some of the basic fundamental principles of business, which is critical. I'm a big fan of going to college for entrepreneurs. Now, there's a lot of kids. I see great entrepreneurs in our youth today that have great ideas. But just because you have a great idea, you still got to execute. And I always say execution beats strategy for breakfast. I mean, you've got to be able to execute, but also you got to have the basic principles and fundamentals, which a lot of times you can't really learn on your own. Sometimes you can. Now, on entrepreneurism, I just want to jump on this for a second. And that is, if you want to learn about entrepreneurism, if you want to increase your entrepreneurism, all you need to do is increase your common sense, increase your empathy. If you increase your empathy, that's putting yourself in someone else's shoes. If you can just get out of your own freaking head and get into what your customers are thinking and what you think your idea, who it apply to, what those people are thinking, you'll see the white space. You'll see the opportunity. So when I say, empathy is, putting yourself in a common person's shoes. If you can increase your view, emotional connection, spiritual connection, what people are thinking, all those things, if you can increase your empathy, which is really increasing your common sense, you'll automatically put entrepreneurism into play. You don't have to be a serial entrepreneur to have entrepreneurism. All you need to do is take a step back and get off your own brain and get out to someone else's brain and try to understand what your customer, what your clients, or what the market needs. And automatically you can then put into place some entrepreneuristic approaches. Now, in all fairness, I look at entrepreneurs with the three buckets. One, you got to know the market. You have to have the basics. You got to know what industry and all the things around that industry. Two, you got to be able to lead. You got to be able to sell people on an idea that no one else could see. So you got to have a little bit of some leadership skills and some selling skills to be able to take somebody someplace. Remember, you're in their head. You're looking at what you think they need, but they may not see it. They may not know it. So you got to be able to sell that and lead people. And leading people is not always easy because you're taking them somewhere that they can't even see. So they've got to be able to trust you. And then the thing that really pushes a lot of entrepreneurs away is the risk factor. Risk. There is risk. A lot of your ideas, and believe me, a lot of my ideas suck. A lot of the things I've tried to do over the years just hasn't worked. And I'm not pitching a shout out here. I mean, I've come up with a lot of great ideas I'm very proud of. And, but, I wouldn't do it any differently. I love all the failures now when I look back on them because the learning lessons were critical in the next stage, whatever I was about to do. If you can go pick yourself off the floor after those losses, which is where some people struggle, they think that losing in business makes them a loser. All it does is gives you an opportunity to become smarter and get you to go do it the next time better. So it's all how you want to look at it. But remember, risk, leadership, and then you got to understand the industry and have the basics. You can't go into an industry that you don't know all the basics and as much as you can about that industry, because that's what gives you the ability to jump into the empathy. Is really knowing what's missing, knowing what people are thinking, why they're buying the things that they're buying, why they're going to Blockbuster, as opposed to not going to order that thing on TV and creating a Netflix. There's so many new ideas in the last 5 years. I think entrepreneurism has been an all-time high and some of the greatest ideas, certainly in my lifetime, I've seen. I mean, think about how long we were carrying tickets around, having to ship tickets. And now it's 2 clicks and a pick. Now you've got the tickets to tonight's game without me having to worry. And then, again, you just zap your phone through, boom, cashless. I mean, think now how little cash you have to carry. You just put your Apple Pay. So, we're living at a time now, if you're young and have an entrepreneur spirit, there's just no better time, I think, at least in the 60 years I'm alive, to have an idea and put it in play. I mean, it's just an amazing period of time in the world of business if you're a thinker. Sorry, that was a little rant there, but
no, that was great, and I'm sorry you hated the question, but I gotta say that was one hell of an answer, and it was and it was a great answer, and I appreciate that. Brandon, you've done a lot. Obviously, you've worked with a lot of people from the Mariano Rivera's, I mean, legendary people, and maybe not so much. Maybe it is the people, but is there something when you look back on your career so far? Because obviously, there's more to come. But when you look back and you go, that thing was really cool. That event or that thing that you built, that whether it was Notre Dame, whether it was something with the Yankees, is it something you kind of go, wow, that was a special one for me?
Oh, I mean, there's no question. I mean, some of the things I was just talking to a friend of mine this morning. I mean, I don't even know where I got the balls to do some of the things and call some of the people up that I've called and done some of the deals I've done. I mean, certainly the deal I did with the Yankees was amazing, was epic. It changed the business. I always want to disrupt. As an entrepreneur is one thing, but being a disruptor is always something I've been passionate about. I think spending the time I did with Muhammad Ali was amazing. Having a relationship with him for 4 or 5 years was amazing talent and person. I mean, there's just so many epic things that were just game changers. I never thought that I'd be the one to be able to put something like that together. Some of the team signings, some of the themes where I brought entire teams together, the ability to work with every legend in my childhood, it's just amazing. But one thing was really positive is that as much as I followed a lot of my dreams, and I would say curiosity and dreaming will lead you to purpose. So, you got to keep your curiosity up. So, but as much as I stay curious, and I never took all these amazing athletes and people that I was able to work with too serious. I was always looking at it as a learning. If somebody is great at what they do, whether you love them as a person or not, in a lot of cases, most of them are pretty good people, but it's always something to learn. I don't think you become like the GOAT, the best of. You meet a Gretzky or you meet a Messier, you meet a Lawrence Taylor. That nobody's perfect. Some of those people, obviously have their ups and downs, but there is characteristics that you can always learn anytime you're in the room from the best. If you're, whether it be a waitress, whether it's the guy who delivers the mail, it doesn't matter. Like, I think when you're around people that are really extraordinary, you always got to make sure you get your antenna up and learn from them. And I think that's the best thing that I've collected is some of that information from some of these greatness, from some of the players I've worked with.
Well, I guess that circles back to what you were saying before about empathy, right? You have empathy if you have and obviously empathy and passion. Those are all great characteristics. But now tell me about the 3 books. I mean, what got you started in writing, and tell us a little bit about each book, if you don't mind.
Well, I mean, listen, most people with ADHD, OCD, they're not big readers. They never finish a book. So I'm right alongside of that. I'm half illiterate, frankly. So I've always had people help me write my books. But the first book was for, if you're a salesperson and just getting started, trying to build your brand. The Business Playbook is a great book. You got to have balls. It's just everything I did, starting with a $4,000 business, turning to a $40-50 million business. And then Living on Purpose is, not, it's really a motivational book to not let you stop at success and really shoot for extraordinary. And also what you do with success. I think sometimes your goal is to be successful, but most people don't have goals what to do after they become successful. By the way, if you go on Collectible Exchange, you can get the books for free. Just pay for the shipping. So that's always a good little bonus. And they're very easy to read books, as you can tell from talking to me. I don't think you're going to find anything too philosophically complicated here, but they're very, very, very smart nuggets that I've learned along the way that I've been able to kind of put into these books that I think are very, very transferable. You can, I call it snackable content. You could easily take the things I talk about in these books and put it into play. I think sometimes when you read these business books, and they make sense, but like, there's just no way you could do it. Like almost everything in my books you could do. Most people call me up and say, Brandon, that's not that complicated. And now you did it. Exactly. I kind of lay it out. So I love the books. I can't, all three of them have their own little, their own funnel of, and they all have their own group of lessons and stuff in there. So you got to pick which your poison to start with. If you're be humbled, go to the site, pick up the book and read it. It's always a blessing when somebody does read it and sends me a note that they learned something.
Yes. And one last thing before, and just so people know, there will be a little write-up along with this video, and I'll put the links in there for Collectible Exchange so that you can see that, as well as a link or two to Brandon and his information. But I don't think we've ever talked about your family, and I apologize for that but tell us a little bit about your family.
Well, one thing I want to mention, just back on the Latin part, is I've worked with some great Latin players.
Oh, yes.
Orlando Cepeda, Mariano Rivera. My favorite player of all time was Roberto Clemente, Jorge Posada, Bernie Williams. Now I have Oswaldo Cabrera as a new client that just signed up, Venezuelan. Great guy. Love him. So, it's been fun working with all these, it's fun working with all these different athletes from different parts of the world, different backgrounds. It's been amazing. My family's great. My wife was very involved with helping me build Steiner. And then when I decided to build this new platform, she retired and she's taking it easy. Good. And my kids are doing great. One works for Facebook, another one's in Austin, working with some computer programming. And my other son is in Charlotte, figuring out how to sell this incredibly high-profile laundromats. They're like these laundromat labs. Wow. I've never been in a laundromat like this way, but they're amazing. So he's selling franchises for that. He's a young entrepreneur. Hopefully I've rubbed off on him. So I've been blessed. Kids are great. Been married 35 years. I'm not sure what that says about my wife, but been very blessed to have that relationship still intact. So that's important. I talk a lot about that in the last book, how important the most important people are. And you got to remember what's important, who's important, and do what's important for the people that are important every day. And, certainly my wife is number one on that list. I'm really grateful. I've known her since I'm 17, although we did get married when I was 29. And she's the love of my life. So I've been really lucky to have her in my corner. She's like my, when you're driving and when you go out of the lane, it starts buzzing. It's very annoying. And that's really my wife in my life. She's the lane control mechanism. Keeps me in my lane, make sure they don't get too crazy. And I think my kids kind of do a little of that too. There's a reversal here. My kids probably won't parent me more than I parent them. Nice. So they're great kids. And I don't think you can put enough time into raising your kids, and give my wife a lot of credit for having more of the impact on them than me. But, I talk about parenting in my third book. Okay. Such an important element. And there's a lot of things that my mother taught me, which had a major impact. And also made a ton of money listening to my mom. I was one of those kids that listened to my mom. So if you're out there and you have kids, I don't think you can take, I don't think you can take enough time to learn how to parent better and to make sure you're doing the best job you can do right from the get-go, right from when you have these kids, they're taking it all in. So I love the chapter on parenting I wrote in the Purpose book, because I went to a whole bunch of different great parents that I respected, and not necessarily my own thoughts. And I kind of try to put it all together, because it's hard to get good feedback of how to parent better. So I tried my best I could. I'm certainly not an expert at it, but hopefully that advice that comes in that chapter comes in handy to somebody reading it.
No, that's awesome. I didn't realize that. And I'm glad I asked that question, because I'll definitely take that up when I read the book, and appreciate that as well. So just for our audience, where do they get Collectible Exchange? Is it .com?
Yeah, collectibleexchange.com, just one E on the Collectible Exchange, just one E. And or you can go to athletedirect.com. That's where you go and pick up the athletes. So that's an easy to remember. Yep. Collectibleexchange.com, Brandon Steiner. And hopefully you'll pick up the book, or follow me on LinkedIn, or you can like me on Facebook. I'm pretty active on social.
Awesome. Very good. We won't keep any longer. You're a busy guy, but we appreciate your time, and thank you again. And we'll talk to you soon, Brandon.